Today, I'm revealing the exact financial traps that beginners fall into and simple strategies to escape them forever. We all know people struggle with money, but here's what most don't realise. These 5 mistakes cover everything from setting wrong financial goals to avoiding investments, from poor budgeting methods to having no emergency fund, and dangerous lifestyle inflation that slowly drains your wallet. You'll know exactly how to stop bleeding money and start building real wealth, even if you're starting from zero. Let's talk about financial planning. Financial planning is a comprehensive process, one that considers your personality, your current financial situation, and the broader socioeconomic and legal environment you live in. It's about crafting strategies and choosing financial tools that support your unique goals. In other words, good financial planning isn't one size fits all. It's a customized roadmap designed to help you reach the financial future you want. But here's the surprising reality. Many people never begin this process at all, especially when it comes to retirement. Research has shown that only about 1/3 of older Americans have ever tried to estimate how much they'll need for retirement. That means roughly 2/3 haven't taken even the first basic step. People often aren't prepared for retirement simply because they didn't plan for it. So what happens when people avoid financial planning? The consequences stack up quickly. One of the biggest culprits is saving procrastination, fueled by our natural desire for immediate gratification. It feels better to enjoy our paycheck today than to sacrifice for a distant future we can't fully imagine. But procrastination means missed opportunities for compound growth, time you can never get back. Then there's the lack of financial buffering. Without savings or a plan, even a small emergency, like a car repair or medical bill, can create stress, instability, and sometimes a downward spiral. This descent into chaos isn't dramatic. It's real life for millions. People without emergency funds often end up paying a high cost for financial shocks, relying on credit cards, loans, or other expensive solutions that leads to more stress, more debt, and fewer options. Over time, the pressure of juggling bills with no long-term plan causes cognitive overload. Decision-making becomes reactive instead of strategic, and when every choice feels urgent, it becomes even harder to step back and plan for the future. Ultimately, the long-term consequence is simple but serious: failing to achieve financial security. Without planning, the future becomes uncertain, not because of bad luck, but because there was never a strategy in place to guide the journey. When we talk about building long-term financial security, one fact often gets overlooked. About 40% of US households do not have any equity investments. This represents a significant gap in their financial strategy, one that carries real consequences over time. Let's start with the first major drawback: inflation. Inflation is subtle, slow, and guaranteed. If your money isn't growing at least as fast as the rising cost of living, it is losing purchasing power every single year. Cash, sitting in a checking account, earning 0 to 1% interest, is effectively shrinking when inflation runs at 3%, 4% or more. Without equity exposure, households miss out on one of the few asset classes historically proven to outpace inflation over long periods. The second drawback is even more profound: the failure to accumulate sufficient long-term wealth. Over decades, the stock market has delivered average annual returns of roughly 7 to 10% after inflation. This compounding effect is what turns modest, consistent contributions into meaningful wealth. Households without equity, investments generally rely on savings accounts or other low-yield products that simply cannot compete with the power of compounding growth. Let's put this into real numbers. Imagine 2 households, each saving $3,000 per year for 30 years. Household A keeps the money in a savings account, earning 1%. After 30 years, they end up with about $108,000. Household B invests in a broad equity index fund, earning an average of 7% annually. After the same 30 years, they accumulate about $306,000. For the 40% of US households sitting outside the market, this is the hidden cost. Not just missing out on gains, but falling behind inflation and losing the chance to build lasting wealth. Equity exposure isn't about chasing quick money. It's about securing long-term financial stability. Then we're diving into a surprisingly common behaviour, the tendency to avoid tracking expenses. At first glance, it looks like simple forgetfulness or a lack of discipline, but underneath, it's often driven by emotional discomfort. Many people unconsciously rely on an out-of-sight, out-of-mind strategy. You've probably seen it or maybe done it yourself, stuffing unopened bills into a drawer, avoiding bank apps, or letting statements pile up on the counter. These aren't random acts. They're coping mechanisms, protecting us from the stress or shame that can come with confronting our financial reality. But here's where the problem deepens. Financial management, for a lot of people, feels mundane, trivial, restrictive, and painfully time-consuming. When something feels boring or emotionally heavy, our brains are wired to procrastinate. So budgeting gets pushed aside, spreadsheets remain untouched, and receipts never make it out of pockets and purses. When we're not tracking, impulsive consumption has room to grow. Without feedback, spending becomes more emotional and less intentional. Layer credit cards escalate quickly. Research consistently shows that paying with credit cards can significantly increase spending behaviour, often because swiping doesn't carry the same psychological pain as handing over cash. Over time, this disconnect contributes to overspending, rising balances, and eventually, debt that feels overwhelming. So the habit of not tracking isn't just a small oversight, it's a gateway that lets emotional spending take the wheel. By understanding the psychological roots behind this avoidance, we can start exploring healthier, more sustainable ways to reconnect with our money and regain control before debt takes control of us. We're diving into one of the most revealing and troubling financial realities in America right now. A recent study found that 59% of Americans in 2025 don't have enough savings to cover an unexpected $1,000 emergency expense. Think about that. More than half the country is just one car repair, medical bill, or broken appliance away from financial distress. At the core of this issue is the role of an emergency fund. It's not just a nice-to-have or responsible adult checkbox. The primary function of an emergency fund is financial resiliency, the capacity to absorb economic shocks without unravelling someone's entire financial life. Without that buffer, even routine surprises become destabilising events. When households lack this safety net and are suddenly hit with an income shortfall or an unexpected bill, they need liquidity fast. And when you need money right now, the options that appear first are almost always the most expensive. Let's talk about what that looks like on the ground. A family without savings might turn to a pawn shop, trading cherished possessions for a fraction of their value just to cover a bill. Or they take out a payday loan, one of the fastest ways to get cash, and one of the most punishing. These loans often come with astronomically high interest rates. Meanwhile, wealthier households with savings can handle similar emergencies with little more than a sigh and a swipe of a debit card. Same problem, completely different outcome. Lastly, we're exploring a phenomenon that quietly reshapes our financial lives. Lifestyle inflation. It's the tendency to increase our spending as our income rises, often without thinking about whether those extra dollars are actually improving our lives. Lifestyle inflation usually starts small, a nicer dinner out, upgraded headphones, a better car lease. But over time, these little improvements become our new baseline. As the lifestyle rises, the financial breathing room disappears. Even with higher income, we feel just as strapped as before. One of the clearest examples of this shows up in housing, which economists refer to as a positional good. Its value isn't just about size or comfort, it's about how it compares to what others have. Consider this. Someone might prefer a 3,000 square foot house when everyone else has 2,000 square feet, rather than a 4,000 square foot house in a neighbourhood where 6,000 square feet is the norm. The actual space is less important than the relative position. This creates a kind of spending competition. People upgrade homes to maintain social standing, not necessarily because it adds real happiness. And all that extra spending crowds out resources that could go toward things that truly increase well-being, like savings, time with family, or meaningful experiences. Another subtle driver of lifestyle inflation is our desire for consistency. You buy one high-quality item, a premium refrigerator, for instance. Suddenly, the cabinets seem old, the flooring looks worn, one upgrade leads to another, until the kitchen remodel spreads into adjacent rooms. This domino effect isn't about luxury, it's about wanting things to match. Understanding lifestyle inflation isn't about denying yourself, it's about awareness. When income rises, pause and ask, do I want this upgrade because it enhances my life, or because it matches a new standard I've unconsciously created? Whether you're just starting out or you've been managing money for a while, it's easy to fall into common traps. Now, I'm going to share 5 simple but powerful tips to help you overcome some of the biggest financial mistakes people make. First up, start by creating a budget and setting clear financial goals. Whether it's saving for a vacation, buying a house, or building up your retirement fund, define what you want to achieve and then break it down into actionable steps. There are tons of apps that can help you, or you can always do it the old-fashioned way with a spreadsheet. The key is to know exactly where your money is going and what you're saving for. Next, let's talk about investing. Start with low-cost index funds or ETFs. These are basically baskets of stocks that track the market, so you get instant diversification with low risk. You don't have to wait until you're a financial pro. Just start small and let time work for you. Third, if you're not tracking your expenses, you're flying blind. Tracking your expenses doesn't have to be hard. Use an app which automatically categorizes your spending and gives you a clear picture of your finances. You can see where you're spending too much and find areas to cut back. Start tracking today, and I promise it'll make a huge difference in your financial journey. Next, the goal here is to build an emergency fund. Ideally, 3 to 6 months of living expenses, but start small. Even $500 to $1,000 is a good place to begin. Set up automatic transfers into a separate savings account so you don't have to think about it. Having an emergency fund will give you peace of mind and keep you from dipping into credit cards when life happens. And finally, let's talk about lifestyle inflation. If you can resist lifestyle inflation, you'll be in a much better financial position down the road. The next time you get a raise, try saving or investing that extra money instead of upgrading your lifestyle. It will pay off in the long run. These might seem like small changes, but over time, they can make a huge difference. Whether you're just starting out or already on your way to financial freedom, these tips will help you take control of your money and set yourself up for a bright financial future. If you found these tips helpful, be sure to like and subscribe, and feel free to leave a comment below about your own financial goals or questions.